you might not be, or if you're like a young designer, don't get discouraged by people who you might feel that might be more advanced, because you never know, like your style can be the next style that's like going to be the hot style coming up.
Welcome to the Passion Behind the Art Show. It's all about diving in with individuals to learn the story behind their passion. It's your host, Darold.
What's up? Guess what? It's another week, another amazing guest, and another opportunity for me to bring you value through someone else's story. But before we jump into this week's episode, I just want to let you know that our Patreon page is up and running, finally. And if you're not familiar with Patreon, it's basically a way to support a specific endeavor that you're interested in. And of course, the endeavor that we're talking about right now is Passion Behind the Art, the podcast. So I would really appreciate it if you would support the podcast through our Patreon page. All you need to do is just go to passionbehindart.com and look for the Patreon tab, and it will take you directly to the page. This would mean the world to me and everything that I'm doing in regards to the podcast. A large percentage of what I do in regards to the podcast, as a matter of fact, all of it is free. And I would really appreciate you if you could just help support the podcast with as low as $2. Nothing too crazy. $2. And of course, there's various tiers you can support with more, and the more you support, the more incentives you get. So just go to passionbehindart.com and check out our Patreon page. This would help me out a lot. There will also be a link in the show notes. So without further ado, let's jump into this week's episode. Well, I am excited to have my brother from another mother, Andrew Thompson. We go way, way back. Art director. Now he's at Vayner Media, art director at Vayner Media, and just the beast in the creative world. Andrew, welcome, man.
Oh, thank you, Dal. Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, dude.
For sure.
Animated beast. Let's get right into it. How did your creative journey start?
Well, back in the day, in the 90s, I used to draw like a lot of I would say on the desk at school, not really on the desk, but just like draw doodles and stuff all over the place. I was into like cartoons like the Transformer and G.I. Joe and Ninja Turtles. So I used to draw a lot, just trying to like mimic their style, what I would see on TV. So that's how I got started. And in school, I started to take a little bit more serious as I got older, like in high school. I would like go to the library, like look at figure drawing and see how they would like design like characters and things of that nature. So that's how I got into drawing and everything.
Okay, cool. So when did you just, so you knew off the bat that you wanted to get into design? So when you were looking for colleges, that was like your direction and all that stuff?
Yeah, originally I wanted to do like because I was a big fan of like Nike and the sneakers as I got older, so I wanted to really originally do industrial design, but over that time I figured that you have to know math and you have to be very precise. So I was like not a precise artist, so. And then one of the guys, when I did like a career day, he's like, yeah, if you're off by one thing, the building can collapse. So I was like, oh man, maybe this is not the thing for me. So. And then I was going to either do that or graphic design, but one of the professors at my school was like, graphic design is cool, but would you want to do some stuff? I think this was like around the .com era, like have those websites. And I inquired more, and they said there's a new thing coming out called new media. So I was like, what is that? They were like, well, it's multimedia where you get to do CD-ROM and animation and those things. So I was like, wow, this could be interesting. So then I started to like investigate colleges that had that in their school. So that's how I got into like the into that type of world, So I eventually like submitted my work to RIT, and the first time, funny thing, you remember those little projectors back in the day used to have like those little thing you see in the little square thing they put on projectors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had those, and they couldn't see my artwork because the projector wasn't working. So I was like, oh man, maybe this is not for me. So I was discouraged. So I went back there again in the spring, and I submitted my portfolio, and then that's how this guy, he said, well, go into this new media program because graphic design is going to fade out after like in the future. So that's where I eventually studied was new media design. You know,
Really? At that time, they said graphic design was going to fade out in the future?
Yeah, because the guy was saying to me, look at all these companies. I think it was, what companies that you had? AOL, you had Netscape. Remember those old things? So the guy was like, yo, look at this, is better. I was like, what is it? You get to do CD. And back then, the graphics were really old school. So the guy was like, don't you think this is cooler? I was like, yeah. It's like, this is the internet, man. This is the future. So I was like, let me give it a try, you know?
Okay,
so I got into that. So
cool.
Yeah.
I mean, like the new media is really blown up, and I mean, like to see some of the stuff that you're doing with it is pretty awesome. But that guy was wrong about graphic design fading out.
I know. Well, the funny thing is, a lot of those, I wish, well, graphic design is still good because I noticed that a lot of creators nowadays, they don't know how to even draw. So graphic design is very helpful, especially if you want to try letters and perspective. And a lot of people don't know that stuff, you know, a lot of the younger kids.
True. All right. So you got accepted to RIT, going through RIT, you left RIT. Yeah. How was like the college experience at RIT? Like, was the program good? Was it worth it? What was all of that like?
I would say it was worth it. The only thing it was scary is like every time we'd go from year to year, which is true even nowadays. Like we would things you learn in the freshman year would no longer be relevant by the time you get to the fourth year. So it's like even nowadays I'm really kind of scared. Now. Like yo, I know it's like, and the funny thing is people wanted that stuff to last for like, oh, I studied this version Flash 5.0. Why can't I use that now? It's like, nah, yo, that's faded out. You have to learn something new. So it's very scary, especially being a designer nowadays. Like you always have to be like constantly like on top of your game. You know, it's really tough. It's tough, man.
I feel you.
It's not a game.
I feel you. All right. So what was like the first gig that you got out after leaving RIT? The first creative gig.
I was an intern at a place called WDDG. In the city, and my role was to organize. I was an intern there, so my role at the agency was to organize fonts and to help them like organize photos. So I didn't get paid for it, but it was an experience to learn how like you organize fonts and you support like the creative team. Like you get them photos on the internet, you crop images, you source images. So I learned how to do all of that, like in that environment there. That was my first role out of school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was like the first, where did you get like the first role in like what you were like trying to do or close to it?
Okay. My first full-time role was at RGA. Back then they were like one of the top digital agencies. And so I was blessed enough to start as like a junior designer there. And then I work on what teams did I work on again? I worked on the Nike team, the Lowe's team, Lowe's Target team. I learned how to like design and help art directors support a campaign and see it from start to finish. You know, that was my first role out of school.
Sweet. That must have been pretty cool. It was like one of the coolest things you worked on.
It was a funny thing. The first cool project I worked on was Nike ID. You know when you can customize your shoe on their phone? So at the time, that was like, this is when you had like a flip phone and stuff. That was like the first time you can actually
you go
customize your shoe. Yeah, it was like way back before. Like this is like 2005 and 2006 where I helped them like design like back then they had a called microsite. I don't know if you remember. You probably know those stuff. Yeah, so like we designed like the microsite and then we did like an app to support the shoe, you know, release of the shoe. Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So now you're at VaynerMedia, you're doing some stuff at VaynerMedia. I know
Yeah.
that's a well-known digital agency,
Yeah.
especially because of Gary Vaynerchuk, because he runs it.
Yeah.
What is that atmosphere like? What is the whole deal over there like?
Oh, it's funny that they have a lot of divisions over there. So, originally was on the Vayner Media side of things, and then just this last month I was transitioned to the Vayner Talent, where Vayner basically helps up and coming or established people establish themselves on different platforms. Like, say if they want to get onto Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, that they don't have the time themselves to like manage their own brand. What we do is we help facilitate that, and where we give them the tools where they can, establish their brand presence on the web and on mobile and social.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So you're kind of helping them build personal brands.
Yeah, personal brands. It's kind of difficult nowadays because everybody's like, which is crazy. 10 years ago, you didn't have that, but nowadays, if you don't have your own brand, it's like it's nuts. And the funny thing is, even for me, I don't even do it as much because it's to be active socially every day. It's tough, man. You have to have a lot of different hats for different. I would say you have to have different. Personalities for different platforms. So some people might be really hype on Instagram, but they're really low key in LinkedIn. For me, I don't really post that much as I used to, but it is a challenge, I would say, for creatives and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so how did and I know initially, how did you initially the first time? How did you get connected to VaynerMedia?
Oh, VaynerMedia. I think one of my friends on the internet called Anthony Coleman. I used to post like illustration on LinkedIn, and then he saw it. He was like, "Hey, do you want to work for us freelance on Mountain Dew?" Because he saw like pixel art or whatever. It's like, sure. So we have this pixel project, and then I started doing that like 1 or 2 days a week, and then eventually he's like snowballed into like doing things week to week for them. So it was which is a blessing. He saw my stuff on LinkedIn, and then he asked me to come interview, and that's how I got the role over there in 2006. 2016. Sorry.
Man, so what is because you've over the years I've seen you grow and just do your thing, and man, what is it like working on all these big brands?
One thing I've learned working with these big brands is the people that you might think that these brands know it all, but they don't. Like the little kid that's a 5-6-year-old on TikTok knows more than them to get their name out there. So you're more valuable to them than they are to you. Which I come to realize, sometimes you look at them like, man, that's a great company, man. Sometimes you look up to them, but in fact, they're looking to not monopolize, but catch the wave of the new kids coming up. So a lot of times, when I was younger, I wouldn't even apply for these jobs. But now I look back on it, I'm like, I should have, because when I start working for them or working at the agency for these clients, it's like, man, we all are talented, and versus we think we're not even talented enough to work for them. It's actually the reverse. So sweet. I'm learning that.
And you're telling the truth, man, because I worked for a big corporation, Brinks Inc., that big company,
Yeah.
You would think it's such a big corporation, they have it all together, they have it totally figured out.
Yeah,
my goodness, they literally have no clue what's going on sometimes.
No, I know.
They don't have no clue.
It's true.
But because the brand, the name and the brand is so big, if you're on the outside looking in, you just kind of automatically assume that they have it all together. They always pick the right people. They always have the right things. They always have the right system going on, but it's not true. And what you said is so true, man. We have more to offer these big companies. We just gotta have the courage to you know what I mean?
Right.
So
right. That's.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. No, you're right. It's true, man. Sometimes, even I'm in awe. Sometimes, man, this is Amazon and this is Netflix, but in totality, they feed off of the culture that wouldn't be able to work 9 to 5 for them, Majority of the time, they're feeding off your ideas, your creativity, but we just don't know it, you know? So you're right. You're right.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So basically, you right now is like working for these various companies. Is that like the only way how you generate revenue right now?
Sometimes, well, I'll do consulting for like up and coming, like I would say like athletes and stuff. Like I'll do like a T-shirt for them here and there, or I might do a logo for a personality. And or what I'll do sometimes too is I'll hit up like what I'll do is I'll hit up like startups and stuff, and I'll do things for them, and like every so often, you know. And I come to think of it, like I should be doing that more, because sometimes you can't depend on the company to support you.
Right.
It's better that they see you're doing things independently than versus like you're always feeding off of them. So sometimes I'll do a product on the side, but I should be doing more of that. I agree, you know.
So how do you just like reach out to some of these people? Like how are you going about like getting connected with some of these the side projects?
What I'll do sometimes is like I don't do like the whole I would say like post, like and back in the day they would have like what is it, Behance and now they have Dribble and all those things. I don't post on there. What I'll do is I'll hit up like the marketing manager for like the Bulls or the Celtics, or I'll just DM them on Instagram and they're like, hey, look at this, check this out. I just did this for you. What do you think? And I would say 75% of the time it'll lead to like a relationship, maybe not in terms of like working directly for them, but they'll be like, yo, come to the game or come by my office. I'll let you introduce you to this person or that person. So that's what I'll do sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't lead to monetary gain, but it's like your relationships you establish with them, because they'll remember you 2-3 years from now, like, yo, I remember you still doing this, you still here, and then that's how it'll work, you know? So
man.
Yeah. And the funny thing is nowadays I think it's like it's talent is maybe 25% of it, and 75% is actually like connections and how you use the technology with your work to connect to people. Because back in the day you didn't really have like a good internet speed, you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have none of this stuff. But it's the people that can use the software, and they might not be as talented as me or you, but they know how to like use it in order to like grab people's attention, you know?
Dude.
So that's what I'm trying to learn more and more how to do. For
man,
real.
You're dropping knowledge right now, man. That is crazy. So you basically just kind of find like the marketing directors or maybe the creative directors for these various companies or whatever, or agencies, and just kind of like, hey, this is what I do. I'm not sure if anything happening right now, but this is what I do maybe now or in the future. That's basically what you're doing.
Yeah, that's what and the funny thing is, sometimes I find like even Instagram is becoming too DM heavy. So right now I'm just on LinkedIn, like looking who's in certain conversations, and I'll just like send them like a LinkedIn message, like, hey, check this out. I just want to know I'm a fan of your work, whatever. And I'll do that sometimes, you know? So it seems like professionally they'll respond faster. Depends on who they are, but they'll respond faster on LinkedIn than they can on Instagram. So
that's true. That's true. And that's how I got connected with the producer at ESPN for the Michael K show. Yeah. That's how I got connected.
Wow.
Yeah, because like
congratulations, man.
I just did some fan work and just kind of shared it with them, and like it had an ongoing connection since then. So man, I totally agree with what you're saying. But man, like that's why I like talking. That's why I like talking to you. You and your pops, like you guys, like, and your sister, man. You guys always like great family, a great family. All right, so
thanks, man.
So, what would you say was the hardest thing that you had to overcome through like your creative journey?
Fear of not being good enough. Because like I said, that was my biggest thing. And now that I look back on my journeys, like the times that I didn't like inquire or make that connection with somebody, it's like nothing gained if you don't try nothing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the funny thing is, I'd probably say further in my career if I would just like step out on faith and like, hey, let me hit up the VP. You never know. Like, especially nowadays, like you have access to everybody in different ways. that's my biggest. I would say the thing that I've learned the most is like just bigger than actually design is actually communicating with a person now. It's like figuring out, and I feel like the younger people know how to do it better than me because I'm like, how'd you get the number for such and such and such? Like, yo, they know how to like really like communicate and the funny thing is their work might be as good as ours, but because they know how to like grab the person, like you said, you made the connection with ESPN. Like sometimes you might think like, oh, I gotta do this hard road and have the dopest work. It's not. The funny thing is the people that get the most hits nowadays on social are the people that know how to like grab the most attention.
Right. That's facts, man.
That's like, and the funny thing is the guys that spend hours on their craft and they go the long, it's like taking a plane versus walking on foot. Like they might have the dopest work, but because they don't know how to like sell themselves to somebody, it's like they'll never catch on. So that's my biggest thing is just like reaching out to people and like inquiring. I need to do a better job of doing that. I would say that's my biggest thing I need to improve on.
That's what's up, though. But hey, man, you're at Vayner Media, and a lot of people know about that place. So hey, it ain't too bad. It ain't too bad.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and another thing I realized too is like try to say hello to everybody because you never know the person that might be an intern 5 years from now. They could be a complete whiz at a software that you completely don't understand, but you might remember them from there. So always like don't burn your bridge in the design world. That's what I realized. So.
Facts, man. Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah.
I'm loving this. So who is the people that's in Andrew's like support circle? Who are the people that keep you together, keep you grounded, keep you like, you know what I mean? People that are with you always from the beginning till now.
So now, I would say sometimes like the design field is not really supported because it's so competitive. Like in terms of like who is the better designer? I'm better than you. This is that. Sometimes like that's it's harder to do that. I would say like the people that support me the most is like who would say support like who would say support me the most? I would say the people that encourage you to do, but like you're encouraging me. I would say. People that always encourage you to do better is like the people I always reach out to. Sometimes like I feel like the design world is too competitive to feel like, hey, what do you think about this artwork? And sometimes they might think of you as like, oh, you might be competing against me. So sometimes I'm not going to share. Because I remember when I used to do Flash back in the day, it was so hard to get someone to like share your file with them. You remember that? Like, we see your Flash file. They were like, no, I'm not sharing with that dude. Remember that? And the funny thing is, like, this newer generation is more open to like sharing files. You notice that, like, it's more.
Yeah. It's more of a community than a competitive. It's more of a community.
So I would say, like, the people that respond and like, hey, I've just posted this work. What do you think? Those are the people I always get inspiration from. Versus like people in my field. I don't know. It's weird how to describe it, but that's how I feel sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, one thing I must say, man, I remember in the beginning days, because you was there in the beginning days when I first started designing, when I first started like trying to teach myself all this stuff, man. And I remember like you were one of the most encouraging person for me, like back in the day when I like sucked terribly.
Oh, man.
I remember that, man. That was like I really appreciate that. Like way back when we were like doing these like when I was trying to do web design and all this stuff, man. Like I really appreciate you back in the day. Like really, like just having my back all the time, and it's just been consistent. Your whole family, actually.
Oh, no problem, Daryl. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, like that's what I'm coming to realize. Like the people that were nice back in the day, if you look back at them now, it's like that's why I always say like. People that always try to say like they're the best, it's not the way they go about, especially in the design field. It's about who can share ideas and help each other to get to the next level, because the person that might be a great designer might not able to share their work on Instagram or may not understand how to use their work to communicate nowadays. So sometimes it's better to like just keep it like always share your work with the people, like, you know, share ideas like how do you do this, how do you do that, you know. It's always good, you know.
Facts.
So,
Facts.
Yeah.
I love that, man. I love that. All right, so what is that thing that Andrew loves that he can't live without that's not your phone?
That's not the phone. I would say one of the things, the Bible. I would say that's one thing I like to read in the morning. Well, I have the app now, so that keeps me calm. Because when you go down to the city, yo, it's like so intense, man. Those people are too. Sometimes I feel like they're too serious down there, man.
It's not, that's New York. It's New York for you, bro.
It's like, why are they so serious? It's like they walk serious, they look serious. I'm like, that's jeez. But I would say that's one of the things that keeps me calm. I would say what would keep me calm? I read that in the morning just to like calm self down, and then you mean like on a day-to-day as I go to work, or like when I'm not working?
Well, I was just thinking mostly like if there's like a product or something that you either use all the time or you really like.
Oh,
you know what I mean? But not your phone, because all of us, our phones is everything for the most part for all of us. I was just thinking something outside of the phone. Like for example, there was one person I had on. It said their blanket, they got like a warming blanket. Another person has like an old school record player. So it varies, man. So it's right. There's just something that, you know what I mean? Some, a lot of pencils. A lot of people say pencils. There's a lot of designers. So just something that, you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
What I use, let me see. I would say Bible number one. I'm trying to think what I use just like to chill out. That's not computer related. I'm trying to think.
Don't have to. Yeah. I mean, it just can't be a phone, but it could be computer related. It just can't be a phone.
Okay.
That's like the obvious answer.
Oh, like get inspiration. Sometimes I go into like Shade Room, Baller Alert. It's like something that's outside of the design community. Like sometimes if you're so zapped away outside of the culture, you miss like current events. So I go on Baller Alert, Shade Room, just to like see like, oh, this is happening in the culture. Sometimes I go on Hype Beast. So check out like, okay, they're doing this in another part of the world or another city. Because sometimes when you get wrapped up in New York, like people only think things only happen in New York, but that's not true. So I visit those sites sometimes.
Okay.
I would say I would do that sometimes just to get like a laugh or two, humor and comedy. So
All right, that's what's up. All right, so
yeah.
Book recommendations. Any books that any books that you kind of recommend?
Books. There's a book called for if you like logos and things of that nature. This book called Los Logos. I'd say that. I just started to like. What started to pique my interest now is like I'm starting to get. I used to be like huge into like cartoon and comics. I'm starting to get back into. I would love to visit like a Comic-Con just to like see, or read a comic. I want to start doing that because like sometimes when you get wrapped up in your own industry, like you get stagnant. You know what I mean? Like you lose that burst of creativity. So I'm gonna start to like look at comic books again. So and then I'd say like definitely I want to check out more festivals as far as. And I used to go to like sneaker conventions and stuff. I stopped doing that, so I'm hoping to go back there, but. Books I like to read is like I want to get back into comics. I would say like I like to read the covers of magazines. I don't like to read the magazine, but like look at the covers. So I'd say that's like so I'm which is not a good thing, but I don't like to like read that often. But I like to see how like people design covers of books.
Sweet. So
yeah.
Sweet. I like that. that. So what's next? What's in the horizon for Andrew? What's next for Andrew?
My next thing is hopefully I can find full-time job doing something, and then one thing I want to start to do is I want to invent. Hopefully I can start. I wanted to trademark a couple of my logos and what do you call it?
Like digital properties.
Yeah, digital propriety or whatever you call those things. And start doing that so I can leave like a legacy or have something, because I feel like a lot of times as a designer, it's like you give all your strength to like these companies, and at the end of the day you get a paycheck, but like you can't really live off of that for the rest of your life, because a lot of these companies, they don't offer pension, and even now they don't offer 401k. So I want to look more into like developing like patents for different things.
Okay, that you can get like royalties and stuff like that.
Right, for sure. Because it's like, I look at it like this. Someone even recently told me, he's like, if you look at major artists like that do music, a lot of them don't have like any royalties, or so when they get older, when they're not hot no more, they can't live off any of their like creativity.
Facts.
So I'm looking to hopefully get into more things that you can like sustain me, like because even now, like most of the times, like these companies, a lot of them don't want to hire designers that are over 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So what have you ever done like before you're 40? Try to like have like you own something, have like an ownership of something that you can say,
right.
okay, this can bring in some kind of revenue when I'm not that great anymore in my skills, you know? So I'm looking to do that in the future.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Dig it, man. I dig it. So, what advice would you have for any creatives out there?
Oh, creatives? I would say like the number one advice I would say is like always keep your skills, like keep going with your skill, because if you 1 to 2 years you stop, the world's going to keep going by you.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say like you might not be, or if you're like a young designer, don't get discouraged by people who you might feel that might be more advanced, because you never know, like your style can be the next style that's like going to be the hot style coming up. Because this guy was even telling me like today's like the creatives that are on TikTok are getting more visibility than people that are like on YouTube and on Facebook. And so try to think of creativity as not just in like one box. Try to think of creativity as multiple things, you know, not just one thing. So yeah.
I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah.
So where can people go to find you, to learn more about what you're doing?
They can go on if you just hashtag or look on AT Slopes, you'll see my work on either my website or on my Instagram or my LinkedIn. And then I would say those are the main places to find my stuff out there. No, yeah.
You know, I never asked you this. How do you say it? Is it AT Slopes or at Slopes? I always thought it was at Slopes.
Oh, funny thing is people always ask me that. Like and the funny thing, I never even had like AT Slopes. I either or, man. Because sometimes I even catch myself like, is it at Slopes? Either. My brother used to always ask like, Andrew, what is it, man? I'm like, I don't know. What do you think it is? He's like, man, I don't know either. So I mean, AT Slopes. I usually say AT Slopes.
Okay.
But most people, like, if they don't want to say AT, they say at Slopes. You know, it's like faster way to say it. You know.
Okay. Yeah, for sure, man. Epic work, dude. It's pretty awesome having you on the podcast. It's good when I can have my peoples from way back on the podcast, man. This has been awesome, man. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope it's been super valuable to you, and you're now ready to take your audience building, your community growing to the next level, to help you and help me build our empire, for lack of a better word, or just to build our thing. Remember to stop by iTunes, Passion Behind the Art, and leave a review and subscribe. It's very important to me. It helps the podcast grow, and it makes me feel good to kind of hear from you guys, to know what you like about this podcast, what it's done for you. So jump on iTunes and subscribe and leave a review. Passion Behind the Art. Be blessed.